Hello, good morning.
Morning to you.
We are scheduled to begin this class by 10:50. So we are simply coming into the class. So no one should be asking why we are not beginning. It begins at 10:50. It is now 10:33. So let us be patient as we wait for this class to be full, and also that we may begin with also those that will be joining through YouTube. So let us be sober. These kind of messages that I'm seeing here about DEMS and all that kind of thing are not part of the communication class. So kindly desist from sharing such information. You have your smartphones, you can do that as you like. So again, good morning. Good morning, class. So I want to use this opportunity to say we can start. I see a lot of people coming in. We can start our lesson. There was someone who made a request that they wanted to see their lecturer. I guess that person is satisfied. We will continue to meet each other on this platform and also on the corridors of the university. So we will have an opportunity to know each other better. Welcome to this course, Communication Skills, KUC111. Boniface, if you can assist me to mute those that are still talking. There is Samsung and this Nyongesa also still talking. So I was saying that this course is Communication Skills 111, KUC 111, and it's a course that is offered to all the first-year students in Kibabi University. Usually, it is a course that takes all of us on board because of the intention of the course, which is to enable us be able to effectively communicate. Although this is a public holiday, but we are on it because we have just come in from home and there is need to catch up with the time we have spent in orientation and in other things that we have been doing so that we can be able to grasp adequate information that will assist us in getting a clear understanding of communication skills. Now, I want to begin by sharing a few things before I go to the topic of the day. One is that those class representatives that are on this platform today, it's important for you to note that there is a wall that has been created called class representatives. So if you have not joined that wall, then it may be difficult for you to be able to get real-time information that you can use then to guide your class. I've had some people call me this morning saying that they have no link to the lesson of today. That means they are not on this wall for class representatives. I want to encourage you to go to ABB 101 and you will be assisted on how you can join that wall, or alternatively, you can ask fellow class representatives who are on the wall so that they assist you to join the wall. The second thing is that this course is also offered on the e-learning platform where you need to enroll yourself so that you can be able to see the content that I've shared there, which includes notes some YouTube videos, some texts, and even sometimes I may share our class tasks so that we can be able to do them together on that platform. There are also opportunities for you to participate in chats and discussions, which I have created on that platform. So to make this class interactive and to enable all of us to participate, it is important that you enroll yourself on the e-learning platform for the course KUC111, September to December 2023. The third thing I want to say is that on that platform, you realize I've given you a number of things. First, I've given you an introductory video that welcomes you to this course. I've also ensured that I help you get the contacts of the technical staff that will support your learning. They may not appear important now, but later on you realize that they are very, very important, because unless your things are okay, you may find that you may not be able to participate in our cuts, and then it will be a great disappointment for you when you have no cut marks or you are unable to participate in the activities of this course. So take that information very seriously. Capture the names and the contacts of those technical staff. You can find them again in ABB 101, which is the Odell office. I've also given you information to help you in this, to succeed in the online learning. What you're doing now is different from what you were doing in your secondary schools, where you had face-to-face classrooms and face-to-face learning. But as you enter into this new space where you're learning online, it is important for you to have an understanding of what can help you succeed as an online student. Among them is being able to build a routine of when you can go to the online platform, the e-learning platform, which I've just mentioned. You need to be able to stay disciplined so that you have a disciplined timetable and a disciplined time when you can be able to sit and read. You need to be able to contribute to the discussions, the charts that are there. You also need to take notes. Sometimes students think that when they're learning online, then they do not need to take down any notes. It's important for you to note that you will do well, or you will be successful if you can be able to write notes. I've also shared with you some minimum technical skills that you need. You need skills for keyboarding. You need skills of managing files. You need skills of certain software applications like the MS Word, PowerPoint, and that kind of thing. You need to have an understanding of how to upload and download attachments, because sometimes we will have opportunities where you are expected to upload information or even download information that has been sent to you. You need to have an understanding of internet skills and online research skills. Some of those technical skills we cannot teach you in the course of this course. So you will need to find time, either in the process of your computer lessons. You should be able to find time to be able to learn these skills, and so enable yourself to succeed as an online student. I've created a general forum where you can post your challenges. I am sure that having learned throughout in a face-to-face situation, you may come across challenges which you may require assistance. It's important that you go to the general forum, post your challenges there. I've also given you a pretest which can only be available after you have read the topic on how to succeed in online learning. So you need to do that online, how to succeed with online learning, before you undertake the pretest. The pretest will be marked by the system and you'll be given a mark. Now, communication is a really important skill that you need to develop. And the reason why it becomes an important skill is because most times when you are engaged with other people, there will be an opportunity for you to share information, for you to express yourself, for you to say what you understand or what you need to share with them. In some jobs, you are even the communicator, because the job could be about salesmanship. It could be about sharing important information to help society. So you need to have an understanding of communication. And so in this course, this week, we shall examine the field of communication as a foundation of what will follow later on. We shall look at definitions of communication, what other people, scholars have defined communication as. We'll look at elements of the communication process, principles of communication, and why communication is important for both academic and workplace life. By the end of this week, there are certain expectations that I have. I hope that you should be able to illustrate the importance of communication among human beings, that you should be able to discuss the communication process, how it happens, that you should be able to outline the elements of the communication process and discuss the various principles of communication. This is the content that we will be covering. I'm sure you can see it. We'll be striving to answer some of those questions. And by so doing, we'll be building a foundation of what skills and how they will help us in communication. Now, students, I want you to examine this picture. I want you to examine this picture, and we have a number of questions we are asking ourselves. Is communication limited to human beings, or do animals also communicate? How is human communication different from animal communication? Students, I want you to turn to the chat and share your answers to these two questions. Turn to your chat and share your answers to these two questions. I can see some of your answers, and most of you seem to agree that animals also communicate. So how is this communication different, therefore, from human communication? People are saying animals also communicate. Some are saying animals do not communicate. If you say animals do not communicate, give us the reasons why you say that. Someone is saying in most cases, the communication is in sign language, that animals communicate using sign language. Someone is saying they use sounds rather than symbols. Someone is saying animals cannot speak. They use verbal a non-verbal communication. I can see you have an idea of what you're talking about. Now, it is important to note that human communication will differ from animal communication in the sense that human communication will be more elaborate, more expressive, and more clear. And we have a variety of ways in which we can engage in communication. Unlike animals, which may just have sounds which they make, human beings have a variety, different types of channels which they can use for communication. And we'll see this as we go along. Now, we want to look at a number of definitions because scholars have examined this issue of communication over time. It is something that has puzzled many people. They want to understand what is communication. And the word communication comes from a Latin word, communicare. And it means to make common or to share. This Latin word has a number of other words that are Latin that also have something to do with common or share. Among them, we have community, we have communism. When we talk about communism, we're talking about a group of, or a society where things are shared. When we talk about a community, we're talking about people who have a shared, either shared language, shared practices, shared culture. We talk about a community. So when we talk about communicare as an aspect of communication, we mean to make common or to share. Therefore, communication becomes a process where meaning is exchanged to enable people reach a level of shared understanding. And this is done through a common system of symbols, signs, and behavior. Whenever communication has to happen, then there must be something common between the people that are engaged in communication. Is it that they understand the same signs, they understand the same symbols, or they understand the same behavior? The Webster Dictionary also gives us a definition of communication, and it says communication is sending, giving, or exchanging information and ideas, which is often expressed non-verbally and verbally. So now Webster goes ahead and brings in the elements of what is shared during communication. We have information and ideas. Of course, it doesn't stop at that point. We have more than information and ideas. Sometimes we share feelings. Sometimes we share our desires. And these are beyond information and ideas. Then we have two scholars, Gamble and Gamble. And these two scholars in 1978 defined communication as a desirable or accidental transfer of meaning. Now, these two again bring another dimension of communication, that communication may happen even when you want and sometimes when you don't want. For example, when you are unwell, you may not tell your friend or colleague or even parent that I am unwell, but just by looking at your appearance, sometimes even by just looking at your eyes, they're able to tell that you are unwell. So you have communicated your unwellness through something that is not actually what you intended. You did not say, I am unwell, but the message was communicated. There are times you even want to hide your inner feelings about something or somebody. You want to say, I am very happy about your achievement. But when they look at the words, the choice of words, when they look at your physical appearance, the kind of gestures or nonverbal cues you're using, they're able to tell whether you actually are having good intentions for them or you simply are saying it And I'm sure you have heard it said that actions speak louder than words. So sometimes we communicate when we want, and sometimes we communicate accidentally, but some information is transferred to the next person. Then other scholars have said communication is a process of sharing or exchanging ideas, information, knowledge, attitudes, or feelings through shared signs, symbols, and behavior. Now here, there is an expansion of what is shared and even the means by which it is shared. We share through signs, we share through symbols, and we also share through behavior. So our behavior can also communicate. And finally, communication is more than a transfer of ideas and words. It is a dynamic process of action and interaction towards desired goals. So those are thoughts that have come out of scholarship work. And they are not the only ones. There is so much that has been written about communication, because communication is an issue that has attracted a lot of scholarship and a lot of studies trying to understand how does it happen, especially how does it fail to happen? Because when it fails to happen, then it has repercussions. And that is what we intend. When we study communication, we're trying to understand how does it happen so that we try to mitigate those times and opportunities when it is not happening. And as a student, it will be very important for you to be able to grasp how to communicate, either verbally, non-verbally, in written. You should be able to communicate well and effectively. Now we have emerging issues from these definitions. There are a number of things that emerge when we look at these definitions and others that we have left out. Number one is that communication is a process. When we talk about a process, we are talking about something that proceeds in a certain orderly manner. It also proceeds in the presence of certain key elements. And we're going to be looking at the key elements that are important for communication. So when communication is a process, it is something that moves in a certain order. And this order means that when one element of that order is left out, then we end up without communication. We end up with miscommunication. We end up missing the information that we intend to have. Number two, that communication is an exchange of meaning, which is dynamic. That means communication keeps changing. There are certain things that will keep changing as we go through the process of communication. Then we're saying communication involves shared understanding of a message. Every time we say we have communicated, it means that what you intended the other person to understand, they have understood it. If they have not understood it, then communication has failed. And we will see why it can fail. And then lastly, is that communication is a system of symbols, signs, and behavior, or uses a system of signs, symbols, and behavior. It can be in the form of a language. That is why now communication is very key to human beings, because we have a language and we want to express ourselves, we want to share information. Then we'll use a language, we'll use gestures, we'll use facial expressions, and that kind of thing. Now, students, I want you to examine these pictures. We have a number of human activities going on, a number of things happening in this. I want you to post your thoughts on the chat section. Why do human beings communicate? Why do human beings communicate? You can be informed by what is happening on the chat, in the pictures. Type out what is it that causes human beings to communicate.
From my side, your slides were stuck at slide number 1.
Stuck at slide number 1.
Hello.
Yes.
Yes.
How do I do that? How do I change that?
Just maybe.
I know I have posted.
Just click on the slides. As you move, click on the slides.
Yeah.
Now maybe click on the current.
Can you see
Click
it?
on the slide
Can you see it?
that we were at.
That is the slide.
They're supposed to be in which slide?
A slide with pictures. Activity 1.2.
Try to click on slide number 2. Just click directly on slide number 2.
So that is slide number 2. Slide number 3. Slide number 4. Can you see now?
No, we are still in slide. Maybe can you try and maybe put in a presentation mode? Put in a presentation mode.
Okay.
By
Let me
pressing
do that.
F5.
Is there a way in which MacD you can help? It's moving too fast. So class, if we are not able to see it as I intended, we can still continue with our lesson. I wanted you to look at those pictures to be able to establish some of the reasons why human beings communicate. So human beings communicate for a number of reasons. When you are speaking or you're writing or you're giving some information, you have a number of objectives you wish to deliver. And these include the fact that you want to be heard or read. Every time you're communicating, you want to be heard or read. You also want to be understood by the people that are reading or listening to you. You want to be accepted because of the information you're sharing. You want to get action. This action can be in the form of change of behavior or attitude. So every time sharing of information is done, every time there is sharing of information, usually it is with the intention of getting these objectives done. Now I want to ask Mark D if he can see my current slide. Can you see my current slide, Mark D?
Yes, Doc, we are currently.
You can see my current slide, isn't it? Someone is saying it's not clear, but what I wish that you are able to understand is when we share information, we have four intentions. We want to be received, we want to be understood, we want to be accepted, and we want to get action. If you check any kind of communication you have been engaged in, like right now, I've been trying to communicate with Mark D because I want some change. I want to be understood. I want to be assisted. So sharing of communication at any point is intended for these four general objectives. And you realize that all other objectives will easily become part of what we are talking about here in terms of the four general objectives. In a classroom situation, for example, when you are undertaking your exam, what you intend is that the lecturer may be able to read the content you're sharing in your paper and be able to award you a favorable mark. If you have gone, let us say, to your parent to request for money, you are sharing information because you wish to be understood, you wish to be accepted, and even perhaps to be assisted. So every other communication you can think about, when you realize that it is communication that is happening, you will align it to these four general objectives. I want us to look at the elements of the communication process. Every time we are talking about sharing of information, these are the specific elements that need to be available to enhance the process. First, we need to have the source. This is the person, the originator of information. It could be information, it could be an idea, it could be a feeling, but there must be someone who is the originator. This originator will share this information with someone. This someone is also called the receiver. In most situations where we engage in communication, the source and the receiver could be two people. That means one person is the source and another person is the receiver. However, we also have situations where we have the source as one person and the receiver could be many people. That is a form of, let us say, mass communication or sharing information to a large audience. The idea is still the same, that there will be one person who has the information and they are passing this information to others. Then we have what we call the message. This could be the information, it could be the feeling, it could be an idea that the source wishes to pass to the receiver. And the message has certain characteristics which it must carry with it. Among those characteristics is that it must be packaged in a way that it can then reach the person who is the receiver. So the source is the one who works on the process of packaging the message. And that process is called encoding. Encoding the message. It can be in the form of either written information, it can be in the form of a drawing, but they package the information in such a way that it can be favorably received by the person who is the receiver. And now when the message gets to the receiver engages in something called decoding. That means they try to understand the message. What did the source mean? And what does the source expect from the receiver? That is what we call the decoding process. Now, because the message has been packaged in a channel, the channel then also has some bearing on how this information will be received and responded to by the receiver. Once the receiver has decoded the message, then they will give back a response, which is called the feedback. The feedback, again, can be in various forms. The receiver may have received the information in the form of, let us say, a written message, and they may decide to give the feedback in the form of spoken words or oral message. But in all situations, there will usually be a feedback. Sometimes even the feedback can be non-verbal communication. That person simply uses their facial expressions, their gestures, their body movements to show that they have responded to the message and no word has been exchanged. Now, these elements are key in every situation, whether it is a communication situation involving two people, whether it's a communication situation involving a mass or a large group of people, the process is the same. Let us say, let me give you an example of a church situation where there is the preacher. The preacher will usually package the information in a certain way as to be received by the audience. Now the audience will respond, will give feedback, either by clapping, either by cheering, either by doing an action that they have been asked to do by the source or the preacher. Let me give you an example of a classroom situation. The lecturer has brought in a classroom assignment. they will give instructions on how the assignment is to be undertaken. So the lecturer becomes the source of information. The class becomes the receiver, and the message is the task that they are undertaking. The lecturer may bring this message packaged in the form of a takeaway paper that the students can then go and work on it, or may give this message verbally. The feedback is either the students will ask questions or they will bring back the assignment having been done. But before they bring back the assignment, the students will have decoded. They'll try to understand what is it that the lecturer wishes to communicate and how do they expect the assignment to be brought back. One last example, an example of an examination, because we are in an academic institution. The source will be the lecturer who will have set a paper, an exam paper. The receiver will be you, the student. Now, the message is all those question items that are on the question paper. It has been encoded in a question paper. The wordings, the way the information is presented, it has been presented to you so that you can then be able to respond. And your response, after you read the questions and decode and try to understand what does your lecturer require of you to respond to these question items, then you will begin to write down. So the paper was given to you, but now you return with written information. That is your feedback. When the lecturer receives your feedback, they will also decode it, trying to understand the answers that you have provided. Are these answers correct? Are they wrong? And the lecturer will award a mark. As they are awarding that mark, they are giving you feedback. And you can also be able to respond, perhaps question, query some of the markings, or you can then tell yourself that you need to up your game in terms of your revision. So communication, in as much as it depends on these elements or the presence of these elements, it is a back and forth process. And in my notes, you will see I've given you models of communication process. It is a back and forth thing. We don't just have one person stationed somewhere who is the source and one person stationed somewhere who is the receiver. Usually, the source can be at one time also the receiver of information. If I met you in the corridors today and said, good afternoon, you will say, good afternoon. Perhaps you'll want to ask me, and how are you, madam? And I will respond. So when you're saying, how are you, madam, you now become the source and I become the receiver. And then we'll exchange a bit of information before we part. But it can be very awkward if I say, how are you? And then you say, I am fine. And then you wait for me to say another thing. Then I say, are you going to class? And then you say, yes, and you wait. Then I say, which lecture is that? Then you say KUC111, and then you wait. It does not happen like that. However, there are models that had looked at communication in that process. They looked at it as a linear process where the source is the source and the receiver is the receiver, and information moves from the source to the receiver. We don't have the receiver also sending information to the source and vice versa. So there was only a straight line, and you look at that model in your notes, it's called the linear model. But we have other models that look at communication as transaction. That means we exchange information. We are trying to understand each other. You ask, how are you? I'll say, I'm fine, and you? And then you also tell me your side of your situation. Are you also fine? Or are you unwell? Or are you challenged? Or are you looking for a specific room? So we have a negotiation kind of exchange as we go about the process of sharing information. So communication then becomes a process. It becomes a process that that moves from one person to another. So when the receiver is encoding the information and sharing it back to the source, the actual thing is that the source is also thinking. Is thinking about what will they do, or what can they do, or what can they say in response to the information being shared with them. So wish to move to the next slide. Why do we study communication skills? Communication skills, we have said, will help you in your academic life, and also when you go out there as a professional. Communication skills are some of the soft skills that most employers are looking out for at the moment. They are not just looking for people with certificates, because you can have a certificate, but you're not able to express yourself. You have a certificate and you cannot undertake your work because you do not have the ability to share information. So communication improves your self-worth. It gives you a positive image. When you are able to express yourself, even before your colleagues, before your lecturers, before your future employers, your image is actually much better than that of another person who may have very good papers but is not able to express themselves. Studying communication will help us to succeed professionally. There are many, many professions, and I think almost all professions will at one point or another require you to share information, to express yourself, to direct someone. If, for example, you are a nurse or you're studying to be a nurse, there is a lot of communication that happens in the doctor-patient communication, or in the nurse-patient communication. So that if the patient has to be assisted, then some communication has to be brought into play. Someone has to listen, someone has to share this information to help the patient perhaps undertake the medication with care or with some kind of an understanding. Somehow, communication becomes an issue. If you are training to be a teacher, your life will actually depend on communication. Your work will depend on communication. You are always sharing information, always interacting with your colleagues, always interacting with society, and always sharing information. In fact, if you are a teacher, usually people in the society have a high expectation of you. You will go to a meeting and they'll always say, there is a teacher here. Let the teacher give us their point of view. What they are saying is this, that as a teacher, there is a way in which you are endowed with information. There is a way in which you can package information and deliver it in a clear and understood manner. So they will always want to hear from a teacher. So communication will help you to be able to succeed as a professional. It will help you to acquire some skills like problem solving, decision making, public speaking. It will increase our knowledge of human relations. When we communicate, we get to understand how we can interact with other humans. And in a situation where communication fails, let us say we have poor communication, then we have repercussions like misunderstanding. People may become frustrated because they are not understanding what you're sharing with them. Or you may end up with a career that is unsuccessful. You're unsuccessful in terms of your career, simply because you're not able to communicate. You're not able to share information. So it is important that you take this very seriously. You think about how you can continuously improve yourself as a career person, because you're training to be a career person, you're training to be interacting with human beings, and you're going to need to be able to communicate with them. Now we have what we call the 7 C's of communication. These were arrived at through the work of scholars who have examined communication. They have said communication should be clear. There should be clarity if communication is to happen. This means that information should not be vague. And information can be vague in various ways. It can be vague because of use of words which are not clear, which are not known to the receiver. It can be vague if information is not logically organized so that it is flowing in a manner to enable the receiver connect with what is being shared. It can be an aspect of the voice. If the voice is not well calibrated to share information, then clarity will not be achieved. So there are many factors that can cause your message not to be clear. And I want you to think about them. I've given you some of them. I've said part of it could be about your voice. It could be about your choice of words. It could even be about your choice of the channel. You have decided to use the written channel, yet your receiver is not able to read. Or you have decided to use you have decided to use which other channel? The non-verbal cues. You have decided to use your hands to gesture, and yet your receiver does not understand the kind of signs that you're showing to them. Then the message will not be clear, and there is likelihood that it will be misunderstood. There is likelihood that information will not be shared. Another one is completeness. Information that is being relayed should be relayed in details. That means if you're sharing information, satisfy the reader, or satisfy the person who is listening, or satisfy the person who is reading. If you're sharing any information, the information should be detailed enough to be able to achieve the reason why you send it. And this especially applies to the written information. Sometimes people write, they want to share information, but then they write in very sketchy ways. They have sketchy points which they share. And so the reader is left, or the person seeing the information is left wondering, is there any other information that I'm lacking to be able to complete my understanding of the idea? When we come to the oral communication, it is easy to add information. It is easy to complete information, especially when you have researched this information and you have it. But in written, it becomes quite a challenge. What that means is that a good amount of research and thinking has to go into you putting your communication together. And let me give you an example of examinations. Our examinations are usually the kind that are written down. What that means is that all that you have shared with me as your answer is what will give me the ability to make a judgment. If the question was attracting 5 marks, from the information you have shared with me, I should be able to give you between 1 mark and 5 marks. Now, if you've shared sketchy information that leaves me with doubts, then I can give you between 1 and 2. The more the information, the more the details, the better for me. So that now I'm able to make a decision that I should give you 5. Of course, I may even have thought of giving you 6, but because the ultimate mark, the final mark is 5, I have just to be confined within the 5 marks. So completeness is an issue. Even when you're speaking, speak with completeness. Give adequate information to satisfy your hearer or to satisfy the person who is watching what you're trying to communicate. Then we have conciseness. We're saying conciseness has something to do with the kind of information you have packaged together, be very specific. Avoid unnecessary words. Avoid unnecessary information that will not add. Remember, just before conciseness, we talked about completeness. And we're saying details, but these details must be connected to the information you are sharing. You're not just writing too much for writing's sake, but you're writing information that is relevant, concise, information that adds up to the topic that you're trying to share. Then we're talking about correctness. What this means is that the information you're sharing, either the facts should be correct, or even the way the structure of the information should be correct. The kind of citation, whom you're citing, should be correct. So that if, let us say, you are writing down information, then you have the ability to check the spelling, you have ability to check the sentence structures, and the kind of information you have added in your message. If it is in spoken, you're speaking, then the information you're sharing should have accuracy in it. There should be accurate information that you're sharing. You're not just sharing information that will leave doubt, that will leave, that will cause the receiver then to seek further information or to now want to make corrections before they're able to understand. We are saying the other C is consideration. When you are creating your message with the intention of sharing it with the receiver, you must think of the receiver. If you put yourself in the shoes of the receiver's emotions, the receiver's desires, and their reaction. Remember, the receiver has to get the message and decode it, and then give you back feedback. So as you're putting this information together, an effective message should have consideration as one of the key elements. What do you want to achieve by sending this message? What is the state of your receiver? What other questions would the receiver have raised if they receive this information? What is their desire, or what do they want? So that you are packaging your information with consideration of the receiver. So every time a message is sent, such considerations are put in mind, such things are put in mind. You are thinking also of your receiver. Then the other C is courtesy. The message should be within courteous language. It should be within courteous information. It should intend to build a friendly environment. So you're sharing information, whether in spoken or written, you're sharing information even in nonverbal ways, you're sharing information with courtesy. And we in society, of course, want people who have values. And among the values that you want to have within you is the ability to share information in a way that it does not harm others. It does not hurt their feelings. It takes into consideration age and respect for age. So courtesy is an aspect that you need to consider. And then lastly is consistency. There must be unity in the message. The facts, the topic must agree, and even the sequence of information. When someone shares with you information that is packaged in a logical order, you are able to grasp and pick elements that you can then use. But when the information is jumbled up, it is in a disorganized manner, there's a possibility that you may end up not understanding what is happening. So it is important that there must be consistency. We have the topic of what you want to address, and then the information inside there should agree with the topic. If it's a question in an exam, you already have the question that was given to you, you are to respond to. The answer should respond to the question. You should not bring in information that does not agree with the question. Consistency is one also key aspect of a message. So you will see details of these 7 C's in the notes. Now, this is just our introductory lecture. But there are a number of things I wanted you to look at, but now I am not very sure whether you can see this screen, this question, Mark D. Can you see this question? Mark D, can you see this question? Or Bonnie? Okay, I can see some people are saying they cannot see. So then that means we have a challenge with the way this information is being shared. The question is this, you can respond to it on the chat. It says, the source can be a reason for lack of communication. Identify two things that can affect the source. What two things can affect the source? What two things can affect the source? Someone is saying noise and distance. Someone is saying language barriers, pronunciation, you're right. Feelings, reluctance, the channel, the distance from the speaker, the choice of words, negative words, moods, you're right. The accent, very right. Unclear communication, you're right. Like mine has been affected by unclear screening. So all those can affect the source and therefore affect the kind of communication. Thank you. So let us look at the next one. The next question says, explain any two considerations you need to make when giving feedback in a communication process. What do you need to consider when giving feedback? You're giving feedback in an exam or to your colleague or to your lecturer or to whoever. What do you need to consider? Someone is saying consider time. You must understand the question clearly, that is right. Someone is saying you must consider the time. Someone is saying I should type the question. Let me see if I can type the question. What should you consider when giving feedback? What should you consider when giving feedback? Impact of the feedback, that is right. The mood of the participants, accuracy, choice of words. That is right. Let us look at another question. A good message should take into consideration a number of factors. Identify any three of them. A good message should take into consideration a number of factors. clarity, channel, the way of packaging. It should be complete. You must consider the environment. That is right. Time, channel, completeness, comprehensiveness. That is right. Courtesy. The content of the message. So those are very key aspects that you need to bear in mind as you go along, because the message, the feedback, and even the source are some of the key factors that will continually be around you as you navigate your communication process. And I've said it's not just in terms of the written, even in terms of the spoken, even in terms of the non-verbal cues. Now, given that this is our first lecture, I wish to stop at that point, and I see people are still posting content of message completeness, but I wish to stop there and to say bye. I hope that our next lesson will be much better than this. We'll be able to work on it to ensure a better presentation. Otherwise, you can now enjoy the day, the Utamaduni Day. Thank you, MacD and Bonnie, for being there. And for my students, take time, enroll on the e-learning platform, KUC111, September to December 2023. There are places where you have to download the notes for reading offline. There are places where you can download the notes and even print them. There are places where you can sit together and write the notes and even watch the YouTube videos. So thank you very much. And thank you for the good wishes. I can see people wishing me well. Bye-bye. Enjoy your day.
Bye-bye, Doc.
Bye bye. Piga kelele hapo bwana. Oya, mwache kupiga kelele.
Nelson bwana achana.
I'm done.
Nafanya nini Zoom live?
Your scrap number is
007. West data. Yako.
Kelele bwana wewe.
Hata wapi kelele.
Snapchat tuone na natural. Ni video ndio na demo Snapchat.
Snapchat ni
natural. Tani za
Kelele ba.
Ngoni video.
Piga kelele wewe.
hotspot bana.
Ni mode barana wika bana.
Anapiga kelele sana.
Nyamaza bana.
Tunaleta bundles.
Mafunzo sahihi hayo Bye bye.
Mtu mwenye baada anainua mkono anataka kujibu nini? Anataka kujibu swali. Angoma mimi wechudo kwenda. Sasa sikio ya naimba hapa Kijaluo. Zina hata unafanya hiko.
Hadi nimwambie message Josephat.
Mimi nilikuwa nishaingia kitambo sasa ananitumia. Tiki sio mimi napatanga mbele. Pesa gani?
Angamo mimi huko huko.
Wananimalizia bundles.
Nzuri jina yako iandike hapa sio?
Nice. Wapeleka huko. Simada mashaenda. Unaona angeshare ni screen. Ningekuwa nime screenshot hata notes sijaandika mimi.
Wewe watu. Ndio TikTok hapo msasa.
Wewe kuja kuandika mimi ulikuja
Wewe mwanaume TikTok unafanya nini huko?
Mwanaume mkubwa tu kae.
Wacha kwa juu bana.
Unaenda TikTok
Unagelele.
Sieni
maendeleo.
wewe ni lele.
Kubabako. Kubabako.
TikTok bana, kelele na yake.
Bana, endeni hapa TikTok bana. The boy Manu.
Mwanaume anakuaje TikTok?
Ila ya wezi.
Mwanaume anakuaje tu TikTok?
Kwani wewe ni lele?
Wewe ni gay. Unakuaje TikTok? Kwani TikTok ni kweli?
Kwani wewe umesikia ni kwa nani?
Yaani my friend, I want you to keep quiet, okay?
Atutizangi hata mbaya yeye atutizangi.
Nini?
Pana jaribu watu.
Itakuwa ni mute.